Um, we came before this committee on August 29th to inquire on the potential of having a partnership, which would be a little unique between Chispa and Mike Nino, that would enable us to facilitate the construction of a 12-unit senior project and to continue with the development of that site. The proposal would preserve the 18 units in the primary mobile park area, but would involve a demolition of a couple of units, and staff did explore what that would entail, and I'll turn that over to Tensia. And then we also did inquire, and Dana could probably elaborate also, with the Housing Authority of the County of Monterey, or HACM as they're so lovely called, about what we might be able to do to help market to Soledad residents without violating fair housing regulations. This won't be a traditional tax credit deal. The beauty of it is because tax credits take a long time to put together, or can take, not always, can take a long time to put together. They would be able to build fairly quickly the 12 units. And with that, I wanted to defer additional comments to Tensia.
So we asked Mike, Nino, and Dana to go ahead and give us a proposal as far as what the collaboration will entail. I know there were some concerns last time on the last ad hoc committee dealing with the units, what there will be a guarantee, what is there a guarantee, or how you can ensure that these units do go to low-income housing residents. So with that said, Dana reached out to the Housing Authority of Monterey County, and they came up with a potential agreement. So what it comes down to is that Chiefs will rebuild the units, but will make the units 100% affordable, in the sense that they would use vouchers through the Housing Authority. The proposed units, there are 12 apartments that would be built on that property, and it would be 100% affordable, as mentioned. The other, let's see, there is a proposal, which is, it's just a draft. But we did want to include that, so we would need to do an affordable agreement. It's unique, but we would need to create one. And Dana, we provided the template to Dana, and she included what the agreement would entail with the Housing Authority, and then also the concern of the people that would be asked to vacate the properties, the two housing the one unit, the single family, but that has the two portables, or actually manufactured homes there. So regards to them, we did verify, I verified through the state that there is a permit for 18 mobile units, which is the ones that are all together on the map. But there's nothing indicating that the other, because that was a question, whether are they legal or they're not legal. So we did our research. We as the city don't have any building permit to prove that they will place there legally. So we asked the state and the public record. I did request a public record. There's nothing on file, nothing but the 18. So we did confirm, so that were put there somehow illegally. So we asked Mike Nino, he's on Zoom, pertaining to that aspect. We asked him to propose to us, to come up with a plan, and discussion as far as like what is a plan for those residents, because they've been there for quite some time. So Mike is on the phone, he can speak on that aspect. But along with that, Chispa is willing to go ahead and make them a priority, and hopefully when the units are available, and if they should qualify, they would get basically first dibs at those apartment units. assuming that they meet the requirements that they set for those units. So I go ahead and give it over to Chispa, to Dana, to talk about the.
Oh, one other thing, I'm sorry.
Oh, the
Sorry,
relocation.
I forgot to mention is that, we are in conversations with Chispa to enable the 12 units. We would have to, move forward with the zone change. But the city did receive funding through its REAP. We received an $85,000 grant to do zone changes to help facilitate housing production. So we would be able to use that funding to move the zone change forward. And on the map, you can see the orange, and we would actually do a zone change along with the mobile home park. So we didn't do a spot zoning. But you can kind of see where that would be.
It would basically make the process a little bit easier.
It makes sense.
And yeah, and it just makes sense instead of doing a patch here. So.
Well, I mean, I have had in the ensuing month or so, since I've seen you a couple of months now, we've had some conversations with the staff and identified the priorities. I think the council members and the staff to how we might lease this building. So we incorporated, I incorporated them into kind of a cascade of priorities for people, but it should be doable, I think, as long the kind of priorities that you expressed interest in were, first people, well, now first, perhaps the mobile home people who have been there illegally and happily for quite a few years. They've had a pretty good deal, in my opinion. But if they want to be in this apartment, if they love this site, then the apartment will be there and they have an opportunity to move in, assuming that a 1-bedroom apartment suits them. And assuming, we structure a rent that reflects their income, since the building itself, as we've agreed upon before, would be 100% AMI rent to somebody who is just sort of free floating out there. That's who the people are that we would seek, with the overlay that we would actually be seeking people with housing vouchers, so they would be 30% AMI people. But I can't, obviously none of us know the people in the mobile homes. And so whoever they are, we would see, they probably fit that income. I don't know if they fit the family size, but I think they probably do. So we'll talk to them and see if they're interested in the building. At the same time, I think what I'd like to be able to do is perhaps talk to them and offer them to put themselves on a wait list that we have for other properties, if they're interested in it, get them through that process. But I don't know, whether they're seniors and should be on a senior list. That's the kind of conversation you can have with them, or I could. The second priority for the city was senior people in the city of Salinas who have housing vouchers. Although really it could be perhaps, I could ask you, someone who's disabled with a housing voucher, or, a small household.
Yeah, you mean
It's not-
Soledad.
I know.
I know she's probably looking at me and forgetting.
Looking at you. I'm sorry. Too many years.
Oh, we were 8 years together.
Rewatch that. The people of any age, really, I have senior in here, but somebody who would be comfortable in a 1-bedroom apartment, which really could be 2 people easily, even 3. Then also people just generally from South County with a voucher. And when I spoke to Zulika about this, they do have some people and they're promoting their vouchers more aggressively, I think, than they used to. And that's something that could be handled by the city or by Chispa, or both, to promote within this city that people should be able to apply for those vouchers and perhaps guide people in that process. And then, just going down this cascade again, people elsewhere in Monterey County was your 4th priority. And then the 5th priority would be people from Soledad without vouchers who are earning 100% AMI and below. And that is actually an income level that's not served by any TCAC buildings or HCD buildings. And there's a lot of people we have in our buildings who earn a little more. You know, they get a promotion of some sort
Mhm.
and suddenly they don't qualify for our 60% buildings. 60, 50, 40, 30 are the income limits that we typically have. Or you would have with a tax credit property. So that's, the other thing that you mentioned, to me was that you're concerned for the homeless people that were living in town or near the river. And those people also, we could put into this, as a priority, really up to the city where they want them to be in this, list. But again, they have to be able to have a voucher to be probably, if you're living in the river, you're not making 100% anymore. So, and this building of 12 units is not going to solve that problem, but it can be available. And again, the housing authority sometimes has vouchers specifically for homeless. There's a little bit of a process for that. That again, it would require people to go out and help them.
And many of the people in the river, I've confirmed, have a CARS assessment and are in process of getting
Okay.
vouchers.
Yeah, so there's that.
I think some even in the past have had some vouchers.
Yeah.
There was one family that had a housing
And
voucher.
it expired or something.
Yeah, I think they let it go or something like that, so.
Yeah, yeah, boy, it's a story I see.
Mhm.
We built a building in Marina, and there was a guy in Marina who really should have been in there, and astonishingly, you know, out of the housing authority's list, he made it on the top, and then he would not go in. He had an apartment somewhere, but he really couldn't afford it,
Mhm.
but he hadn't been filing taxes in quite a few years,
Mhm.
and he was afraid to go in and have the conversation. And now he's just barely living, you know, he's living in a car. It's
Yeah.
awful. So I don't know, but if something can be, if they can be worked with, we could probably be the best equipped to do it.
Okay. Yep, thank you, Dana, for that information, and I know that Mike is here. I don't know if there's any additional comments, Mike, that you want to make in regards to the proposal. Is he on?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No, I have nothing to add. Other than just two quick things. I'm not sure. I did email a new potential site plan to Hortensia. Well, I did it this morning and it didn't go through. I'm not sure if she shared
We
that
have
with you. Okay, you have it. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. The only other thing I was gonna address was, you know, there was some talk about maybe providing new spaces for those trailers within the trailer park. But after going through it with the engineer and where the sewer line is and the radius is to get those trailers in and out, it's just not an option. So Tensia asked me to look into that, and I did, but it just won't work.
So new spaces, like to see if they can accommodate additional trailers?
Wait, we were talking.
Yeah, to move the trailers.
The
Oh, the
existing
two
trailers
locations.
onto the, where the 18 units are at, to see if there was room, because he had mentioned there might be a room where we can just move them
Yeah.
over, but he did mention, just recently last week, that he checked on it and it would not work out.
No, you can't put anything on an existing utility
Yeah,
line, so.
and then you'd have to get the permitting all
So
over,
the-
right, because it's existing 18
Existing,
units.
exactly,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Mike. So let me bring it back, and thank you for that. If you don't have anything else to add, then we'll bring it
No,
back.
I don't think so.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the updated plans. We do have those with us, so I'll bring it back for discussion, and we'll start. I don't know if you wanna start, Councilwoman Corralejo, and then I have some questions, but before that, I do appreciate the bringing back that information. I just want to clarify for our public, at least on my end. Obviously, I know that affordable housing is really critical And my comments and the information that I wanted to be brought back was just to make sure that those units, that if we did proceed with the project, that there was a guarantee that those units would remain affordable, given that we don't have any subsidies. Typically, traditionally, if you have subsidies, then there's a mechanism already to ensure that those units will remain affordable for whatever 20, 30, 50 years. So this one's a little bit different. It's unique and innovative. But my question was really not to deter affordable housing. I want to make sure I say that for the public, that it's not to deter affordable housing, but to make sure that our community was able to have affordable housing, that we had a mechanism and language in place to allow the city to be able to hold that accountability, that these units would remain affordable. And how can we put in place mechanisms and policies that would ensure that? So I just want to make sure that that's clear, so there's no miscommunication about me not wanting affordable housing. I know there was some rumors about that, but it was about how do we make sure that these units do remain affordable and are affordable for our residents. So with that, I'll open it up for questions from Councilwoman Corralejo, and then I have some questions and then just some final comments on it.
Okay, thank you. So I, first of all, wanted to thank you for being here as well as Mike. And the first question I have is just as I was looking through the agreement, I did notice that there's different highlight colors used, and I'm not sure if that's like a code for something, a different highlight.
It's, you know, it was
You-
residual from the city. I think
Okay.
this was like a template, and they
Yeah.
had, I highlighted things like, well, this might not actually apply to this, you know, and I kind of, and then I did my own highlights. Did you actually see it in color, or did you see it in black and white?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So
I
there's
think yellow is my
green.
highlight, maybe.
Okay, I was just
Yeah.
wondering if there was some kind of code back there. How kind of decoded?
I think,
Okay.
like you say, it was a template that's there, but again, this is unique and this project's unique, and we,
Mhm.
obviously some of the language does not apply.
Yeah.
So there's notes on there that whether or not does it apply.
Yeah, we just
And
gotta figure it out.
and we need to rephrase some of the stuff, and then they added their
Yeah.
comments.
Okay, so I just have, I think, three comments. One of them was, regarding the marketing efforts. You know, there's a lot of, good stuff on here on, you know, us marketing on our social media. Where else did I see? Our local newspapers. I think to me, I would like to see more person to person, like face to face outreach. So, you know, whoever handles the marketing, I think it's important to go out to, you know, maybe the river, have
Oh, for the
somebody.
river, you have to go
Yes,
first.
yes, go out there. You know, we have some people that are not on social media or that don't buy the newspapers. So we definitely want to, you know, use other forms of outreach to make sure that we, you know, can reach as many people as possible. And then also, I had like so many notes on here. And again, this is a draft, so, but I did want to point out on section 4.06, where it's talking about the occupancy. I just, was going to suggest us putting some kind of wording, stating that the tenant, should the tenant no longer meet occupancy requirements, just like for the income requirements, which I did see it on the income portion. Due to changes in household, then Chief Spa should move forward with the appropriate termination of tenancy. So it's not necessarily that they did something wrong. Sometimes, you know, maybe somebody has additions to their family or gets married and now they're a family of 7. So we definitely want to make sure to have that clause in there with regards to the occupancy.
I think it is on section 4.07. So the income ineligible tenants,
Yeah, I saw the income portion on there, but not the occupancy.
but what does the occupancy mean?
Occupancy is how many people are in the household, so that might change.
Oh, the
It might
number
be-
of tenants.
Yes, exactly, so that might change depending on the family composition or changes that happen in their life. And then, let me see.
Would you, Okay, let me just ask Dana on that question, because you're gonna have there's an annual certification process that happens as part of this. And the annual certification process, I believe, includes, because I remember we used to do this with the city of Salinas, includes the occupancy and number of people living in the unit, right? So that is part of the certification.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It's certainly something you do in a tax credit building and others as well. Part of it is just parking. You know, we want to know exactly how many cars live in the building, you know, how many cars are associated with the people in the building, so there's not extra parking, and if families get to, yeah, we do look it over.
So how would it be handled? I understand there's an annual certification with tax credit, but how would it be handled if, let's say, someone gets certified 3 months later, they get married, the person they marry has children, they all move into the unit?
We just start out with the conversation with them when they move in, that this is a unit with a maximum of 3 people or 2 people. And then, they have to make their life decisions around that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that they're inevitably, if they need to be released from their lease because they now are 7 people, that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, there will always be a list of people who want the building.
Yes. And then my next question and last question for now is just regarding the Section 8 vouchers. I know it's very limited, the time that they open that list. I think I've seen like maybe a whole year go by and they don't open the list because they have such a long waiting list. Is that with us opening this community here in Soledad, is it possible, and the answer might be no, but I'll ask anyways, is it possible for the housing authority to open a waiting list for the housing Section 8 vouchers specific to Soledad residents?
No, I don't think so. I think what they can do is, as you were saying, better marketing down here. So when they're gonna open the list, make sure people in Soledad understand the process.
Yeah.
I mean, the way we've marketed sometimes is through a church or through the PTA, or
Yeah.
the school. And, we find organizations in town that automatically have large number of people who could be ambassadors to their wider community,
Yeah,
And I think that's what has to happen.
yeah,
So that
definitely.
people know how to apply
Mhm.
and that there's applications down here
Yeah,
that can go in their hands. And that is stuff that we've done
yeah,
many times, but I just think that's how you do it. You don't violate fair housing, but you give some extra work in the area where you want people to have a priority. Like when we're building in a city, we always have, and we're making our own wait list, separate from housing authority, but we would have a big sign on the construction site or on the vacant land, long before construction
Yeah.
starts, giving them a place to call and have
and
a,
people are naturally curious, so they're gonna.
yeah, so now you have a
They're gonna know.
QR code on the sign and they can go there and get everything they
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
from it,
And to add, through the chair, the biggest impediment in Monterey County is actual units that will take Section 8, so they have a lot of people who have sitting with Section 8 vouchers that they expire, and that's also affected the housing authority's ability to get more vouchers, and they've lost vouchers because they haven't been placing people, so.
Lack of housing.
Yeah, the lack of the units has been not so, and I think once they can start showing placement, it hopefully will result in HUD issuing more vouchers to Monterey County.
Yeah, I'm sure that, of course, our priority or your priority is people in Soledad with vouchers.
Yeah.
So that's the whole marketing task.
Yeah.
But if there were not enough people in Soledad with vouchers who wanted this size unit, because some of them may be family people, right? Well, then there are people with vouchers elsewhere in Monterey County because people need the housing. Yeah. And then there's also, if I may just add this, there's Cecil, which has, see, you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
They have clients.
Mhm.
And then I also spoke today to SARC, San Andreas Regional Center, and Housing Choices. They have clients, that are looking for housing and have they have special vouchers. They have
Mhm.
vouchers of some sort that, a name I can't tell you, but some of them, they're gonna, Sark today wants to get back to me in the next day or two and tell me the list of people they have as clients who are in Soledad.
Yeah.
I didn't think of them until today.
So Dana, I had, just on that note, Councilwoman, because I know I had gone to I think it was one of the the fairs for our community groups and Gonzalez for children with disabilities, right? And they put on this annual conference. And I met them and we had a conversation, and I believe I had reached out to the woman that's the CEO to let her know how can we work together. At that time, we were putting the housing element plan together to be able to include them there. And that's where I learned from her that they have vouchers to be able to give to them and that they don't utilize them as much. So I remember I asked for a meeting and I just, I know that we're gonna meet with her.
Okay.
I wanted to meet with her because that's the discussion I wanted to learn more about. How do we do that? How do we partner with them, given that we know that that's a population that we really want to make sure that we focus on as part of our housing element as well. So
I think
so I know this is just kind of our, it's, the draft portion of
Yeah.
it, but if we can really, look to having them as a partner for this project, like how do we do that, given that they not just now we would have access not just to the housing authority vouchers, but also to some of the vouchers and their population base with the seniors and
we
disabled.
just have to communicate with them, because I was actually not calling them about this, but of course I thought of this in the middle of the conversation. But I have funding from the Department of Developmental Services for our development that we want to do in King City. And it's, a loan that we'll use, but with it comes that we're dedicating 8 units to people who are clients of Sark. And so we were talking about that actually, but they, in the course of that, this is down in King City, they have a lot of clients in King City, farm worker families with a disabled child. It's really the usual description of this. And so when I brought this up, as other places where they could place people separate from money, not having any money come in, but this is a unit that we hope to build soon. Your clientele, do you think they would be interested in it, especially if they're here in Soledad already and looking? And they said yes, and they wanted to go into their files and see who lived in Soledad. So I'll tell you what I learned.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I know I had asked her too in terms of just data, because they had mentioned that there was an increase in families with children with special needs.
Yeah.
And so I know I had asked about just data that gives us more like, here's what we're seeing in terms of that population increase.
Well, I asked for the
and
same
moderate
thing
second,
today,
okay.
so we'll get it to you. Whatever I learned from them, I'll get to you. But it did sound like, yes, they have not been unable to house a lot of people. I'm sure there's a lot of people with this, a disabled child who's there in a garage somewhere, it's not good.
Yeah.
But,
Through the chair, one thing I probably should have explained a little bit is that, Mike, because we haven't had these partnership situations, before, Mike is determining what the appropriate agreement is, so it might not look like this. But we can put some of that, information into those agreements, and we can even have an MOU that stipulates that you wouldn't really put into an agreement, but would stipulate how we would work with Chispa, including reaching out to what is it, Spark? Sark, San Antonio.
San Andreas Regional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Andreas. So what I would suggest, what I think would be helpful is if the ad hoc committee could give us direction and we could craft those documents to take to council with all of your kind of direction, that would be ideal. And again, our city attorney is still trying to figure out the best mechanisms to lock those in, but I think an MOU is an appropriate thing between the city and Chispa, because a lot of it is going to be working together on some of the things you identified.
Yeah, that's a good, I know I wasn't gonna be able to do it, not in this mechanism, not in this agreement, but even on the marketing piece, because they are gonna be doing marketing, the separate MOU that talks about the marketing piece and who we're reaching out to, at least the existing, right? Because we want to make sure it's realistic and who are those already existing entities, agencies that are already providing services for the focused target populations.
Yes, and we should identify the structure of how we market to the general public in town. Because I'm sure that there are, churches, PTAs, whatever, there is something I'm not thinking of that is how you reach.
Yeah.
Through the council in part. I think that you could end up really reaching everybody.
Yeah.
And then, how much follow through and coming back they do, there's a portion that will.
Yeah, there's a lot of we have a lot of local grassroots,
Yeah, okay.
groups, local groups, that are already working in different sectors of the community. I think it would be important to be able to have those in a database, right? Here's how they're gonna market to them and they can disseminate some of that information.
I think our school district has also been very helpful when it comes to outreach, and they have a very good system where they reach all the parents of all the students. So that's been real beneficial for us.
It was very useful for us up in Hollis.
Yes.
Yeah, they're good for the population, the majority, right, that has children, but for those that don't, I think just identifying all the other mechanisms to be able to do outreach.
And
So I
through-
have some questions.
Through the chair too, I just wanted to mention, we are hiring, thanks to the foresight of city council, we are hiring a dedicated housing person. Tensia has been doing both economic development and housing, and she's like, whew. So I know that there'll be a lot more focus that we can pay attention to the marketing piece.
Yeah, absolutely, good. Any other comments on the? Okay, so I have a couple of questions, and let me start with the questions and then I'll just go into my comments, but on the 2 units, so can you explain, or do we know whether those individuals were paying rent and to who they were paying rent to? Or were they living there for free?
No, they were paying rent, and I think Mike might have more insight on that, because now it's on the property, but I think the main unit, there was a caregiver unit. That's from what we found out. Mike, do you have any more details on that?
Yeah, there's a house there that's been there forever. And actually we have the property manager of the trailer park. His son lives in the house and he doesn't pay rent, but that's an arrangement by me, because apparently before I owned the property, the house was being broken into and being vandalized and whatnot. And, it's in relatively poor shape. But, I really don't want to, I really don't want to do anything with it, knowing that it's going to be torn down shortly. And so anyway, I've made an arrangement with him and he lives in the place and kind of and he's also aware that, that's a short-term situation. As far as the other 2, I inherited them as well when we purchased the property. And yes, they have been paying rent, space rent, for as long as they've lived there, as far as I know. And one other thing.
Are they paying rent to you, Mike?
They do, yes. Yes. One other thing, Tensia asked me a little bit about the, the makeup of the inhabitants of those houses and of those mobile homes. And apparently there's a single lady in one, and then a couple in the other, with a 18 or 19-year-old child that stays there from time to time. So that's what I know about the inhabitants of those. I don't know any more than that.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. So Megan, my question is, if they're paying rent, And we're gonna demolish, the proposal is to demolish those 2 units. There's no requirement for relocation fees to be paid, even though it was an illegal structure, given that they were still paying rent.
Well, whatever, Mike is required to do as a landlord is what he would have to do. They don't need any provisions, at least for our knowledge, in terms of the mobile home park, which is in a different sort of state regulations. So those 2 units, he would, just like any landlord, if a landlord was going to demolish houses to build multifamily, let's say, they would have to, work with those and do whatever I don't know what their agreements were with these individuals, if it was a month to month. But that would be between Mike and, those properties. It sounds like Chispa is willing to talk to them about giving them preference in the, development itself, in the housing.
Okay, I just want to be clear, so we can have some of that language too, or just kind of I don't know if there's a way to factor some of that language in the provision, because I thought when there was a discussion previously about some of the other units there's also a mobile home park, and these were legal structures though.
Yeah,
That they were gonna be removed, or there was gonna be a conversion to something else, there was gonna have to be, there were based on state regulations, that they were required to provide a relocation plan for the
that,
units.
yeah, that would be true of the 18, but what we kind of confirm with the state is they don't have record of these, so those provisions
why.
would not apply to those units, and therefore it would, whatever
Okay.
Mike's agreements are with those would.
Okay, I would just, for us, at least for our purposes, I don't know if it needs to go into the agreement, but I think it's important to have the documentation and to be able to know, like, when we have our, any kind of the report, the council report that's gonna come back, to really be clear on, based on the state's, guidance on these units, because there is no record of those units and they're not a permitted structure, then there's no need for, for any type of relocation assistance.
No.
We check with the state, on regards to that, we check with the state, so I went online and you can only find the 18 registered. I'd also check with the assessor's office, because sometimes they have files on their side. And what we were able to obtain from them was just basically when they go and they check the site to assess the site. Doesn't necessarily mean they're legal, and so all of a sudden they show up. 1980 something, they just show up, but there's no permit for that. So all we have, and then our files, we checked our files as far as we could go, there's nothing on file, so other than the 18.
Okay,
So.
yeah, well, I think just for purposes in terms of documentation, especially with those units that are gonna be demolished,
Yeah.
that's clarity that we receive and obtain guidance from the state, that because they're not anywhere to be found, they're not registered units, and therefore there's no relocation, so that could be really super clear.
Yeah, and we can, ahead of going to council, ask that, Mike and Dana reach out to those 2 units and get some clarity about their interest in the Chispa project.
Yeah, so thank you for that, and then just, I think the only other thing, and I know this is obviously just a draft and a template, but on page 3, where they talk about, there's all the different priorities. Dana, on these, I know, like, the first priority, and thank you for making sure that those units that are gonna be demolished, that we are including those residents, as giving them, a priority to be relocated if they meet the eligibility criteria into those units that are gonna be, the units that are proposed. But then on the second and, the third priority, the third, fourth, and the 6th, we talk about South Monterey County, so I know when we had the discussion, obviously, the second priority is gonna be those seniors or disabled applicants living in the city of Soledad with the housing authority vouchers. So on that note, with the housing authority vouchers, can we also add language or any, or other vouchers available? So that way, we're not limiting, it's just housing authority, but if we're able to use a housing choice vouchers, that they meet that criteria as well.
Yeah.
And then on the fourth priorities, I know that we're obviously going to try to market as much as we can to Soledad residents. But if not, we're going out to Monterey County and under the fourth priority as a whole. If we don't obtain anyone from Soledad or from South Monterey County, then the third priority would be opening it up to any individual within Monterey County that meets the criteria and has a voucher. Okay. I guess my only concern is that we want to make sure that, I mean, for me at least, and I'll speak for myself, is wanting to make sure that as much as possible, we really retain these units for Soledad. I know that we do have a huge need here, especially for these lower and specialty kind of units. So, I mean, I know we have to have language because you have to be able to have an option if you don't have anyone occupy the units. But I would just really, for me, my caution is I don't know how we can just, I know we had it as a second priority, but just, you know, the other priorities would just be at, you know, in the event that that marketing doesn't work, that there is no other alternative, that we go out to open it up to Monterey County.
Yeah, Monterey County, when we're talking about vouchers, Monterey County, but at the same time, there are people in Soledad without vouchers who are earning 100%. Those are people that we're trying to reach too with our marketing. So those are people who they're not 30% people, which I think is your priority, but they should be your priority as well, because they are people who are squeezed out of the low income housing and out of the market rate housing.
Okay, so can we modify then on the second priority, on some of that language, and to be able to say, instead of, and are seeking housing, so where you have the city of Soledad who have housing authority vouchers and meet the income eligible housing criteria? Because it's not just anyone that's seeking housing, they have to meet the criteria, right? Would that be too constrictive?
Well, I guess for me, it goes without saying, they have to not have a big police record to come in our building, and they have to have a credit check. That's what, I mean, I don't think we need to go into all of that here, but I could say something like, you know, they meet CHISPA's tenant standards, but I think you're trying to say something else, and I'm not quite sure what it is.
Well, I think what I want to make sure is that we have, so you say it's not just those that are, I mean, obviously the priority is going to be for those that have the housing authority vouchers, but to make sure that for me is, we have a lot of people under that 100% AMI, right? So how do we make sure that they stay as a priority? And I know we have, because we have to, the third and fourth option to open it up to Monterey County and South Monterey County, but I want to make sure that they stay, that the Soledad our residents have the priority.
So are you saying that
With vouchers or not, that meet the income criteria.
Yeah,
Maybe,
I think I was under the impression that 30% was important to you, but I mean, I know it is, but more important. So fifth priority can be moved up to under third priority. If you want.
well, yeah, and what I would suggest, I don't know if this is, through the chair, if this is what you're looking for, but maybe moving the fourth priority down a peg to the sixth priority, so that you have, you know, first you have disabled folks in Soledad, then you have South County, because people bop around,
Right.
you know, a lot. I would say that would be important. And then maybe it becomes that the Soledad folks with 100% AMI, and then maybe South County AMI, and then the Monterey County vouchers goes to that sixth priority, and then the seventh priority can remain. so that we, promote all the South County upwards.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would make sense, but.
Yeah, that makes sense. And to your point, Dana, I think 30%, obviously that is, I mean, when you get into some of the seniors and disabled, we are looking at those incomes, right? So those have to be, I think those are still the priority, as you said. But just making sure that if we don't have any of those, which I don't anticipate we won't, but that we still say if it's not 30%, then it's under 100%, right? Anyone that meets that criteria under 100% within our Soledad or South Monterey County. I think that would
Right,
work.
well, they'll have to earn 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they don't have a voucher, they have to be able to afford that. Otherwise, we're not gonna be able to.
Yeah, for the
build this
rents.
building.
Through the
Yeah.
chair, I had
I
a
understand.
question,
Yeah.
with regards for Dana, with regards to the 100% rent.
Mhm.
As we were discussing, as Mayor was discussing about the Soledad residents that don't have vouchers, but still meet the qualifications.
Mhm.
I was under the impression that the rent would be is gonna be kind of expensive, and because I know in my past experience, usually the Section 8, rents are pretty much kind of market rent.
They're
Rates
close,
almost,
yeah,
and then-
100% is.
Yeah, and then the voucher is what kind of
Mhm.
helps them out, the subsidized portion, the 30%. So
Mhm.
what do the rents look like? And I know it's gonna change based on when.
Yeah, I can't
Mm-hmm.
remember. I had a little chart for it, but remember, we have to get that rent. Or
Mhm.
we cannot operate the building.
Yeah,
We cannot pay our
Yeah.
debt to build the building. Unless we got some free grant from the city, which
Yeah.
is how things are built with subsidy.
yeah,
The money comes from somewhere. The money is not coming from somewhere here. It's coming from us
yeah,
in our bank. So, there may be some way we could get some
Yeah.
extra money in there, but that's why I want it to be 100% so we can build the building.
yeah.
Yeah, but we can't pretend that it's free and
Yeah.
that anybody can pay what they want and still operate a building.
Yeah,
But we can include here in exhibits, because I know that reference the
Yeah.
income limits for
Yeah,
the
we'll
county.
include it. Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be included, and then we'll be able to say, and those change annually.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
they
most of the
do.
time they
Yeah,
stay the
there-
same,
there's
but
been a recent, I think they updated.
they
like,
update
right
them,
about
you know,
now.
they don't
Yeah.
change very extremely,
Mhm.
extreme changes, but
Mhm.
I think that's important to be able to have that way. It's easier also for, as a public document, that our residents understand what is affordable within those different income levels, and then what is the rent within the area, right?
Well, certainly we would be discussing it a lot when we were marketing the building.
Yeah.
yeah,
And through the chair, just to clarify, 100% AMI is not market rate necessarily.
Yeah, no,
Because-
it's not.
It's usually less because
Yeah.
you have to take that person's income level. And then you have to work backwards. It can't be more than 30% of their income, including utilities. So it's usually like 30 to 40% less than market rate in my experience, but it may differ in Soledad than it does in other areas, but.
yeah, I think for me, the reason that I brought that up was because I was just, concerned, and I don't want there to be, I guess, what is it called? Like, I don't want our residents that are gonna apply for it to think that the rents are gonna be real low, which I think we've had that issue before. So I really want us to be upfront, whether that's, and I know usually the applications are pretty detailed, like they'll have all the requirements and the rent rates. But I'm thinking maybe even a workshop before, just so that, it's understood what the rents are, because I guess my fear is that people will apply and not know everything, and then they'll be disappointed, or it's not what they thought it was gonna be.
Yeah,
That is always the case.
Yes,
In
exactly.
all things in life.
So,
And certainly for this, and there's also the people who are disappointed that they
Yeah.
can't get in the building because they earn a little too much.
Yes,
And they still don't make enough to rent a market rate apartment,
yeah,
but they're earning 100% AMI.
yeah,
And they can't get into one single affordable building.
yeah.
So Dana, under that note, though, on page 5 of 9, you do have, under section 4, we do have the workshops that are gonna be conducted by Chief Spark for the 12 affordable units. So, so those are gonna be done in English and Spanish, and, Yeah, so that information is in there and it'll explain the rent terms and conditions of the affordable unit. So our residents will have the opportunity to be able to make sure that they understand what those criteria is. So my question on that was whether this is gonna be done annually or only when the units are available to do for the marketing of those 12. So say if those 12 units on the first try, you get all 12, they qualify, and those, people are there for how many years, you'll only do the workshops as the units become vacant.
Right, but what we do is create a wait list, of course. So at the time when we do that workshop up front, we'll have more than 12 people interested. And so if somebody moves out in 2 years because they're gonna go, live with their daughter or something, well, then we go down the list.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do a
work.
workshop, but there's people on that list who are hoping,
Yeah.
that they're gonna be called, so we call it.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that, and I think that for me, I'm glad that that's in there. I know you guys do a good job in terms of the workshops, but just the marketing piece, I think for us is something that we've seen is really critical.
Yeah,
However, the last couple of times that they've done anything related to housing, it's been pretty full, right? Because people are looking for that, so I agree just in this, just to make sure there's transparency in terms of the affordability of these units, because I know the last units when the Chispa had built, I remember I had reached out to Paul because I know I had some inquiries about, hey, these are supposed to be affordable units, yet, for some people, they're still not affordable, right?
Mhm.
And so it's really looking at the criteria that we need to use in terms of those affordability levels, limits that we get through the county, and then also looking at, like you said, these 12 units are not gonna have any subsidies, so the importance of making sure that we're working with Chispa to ensure that the units are filled at least by those individuals with those different income qualifications. Okay, so, yeah, thank you. I think for me, let me see if there was anything else that no, I think my only other, and this is a comment, because I know you talked about how difficult it is to be able to have the housing authority issue those vouchers, that there's people with vouchers, yet people can't find landlords that take the vouchers for a lot of different reasons we've heard, right? The Housing Resource Center has developed the gold standard for working with landlords. I don't know if you work with them closely with Alexa. I know that they've been able to provide incentives. I don't know if there's an opportunity. I know obviously it's gonna come out of Chispa's funds, but if there's a way that we can look at their criteria for their landlord gold standard program, and if there's any way they're also working in South County and looking at if they already have some families with vouchers, if there's an opportunity to partner to do even some of the training or workshops with the landlords that we have.
well, I think that's a good idea. I think it's something that Soledad ought to be doing. It's not really related to this building, because Chispa always accepts vouchers. So we're not one of the landlords they need to lure, but they have programs. I know that they have seminars for landlords. You could work with the Rotary Club, you could work with any number of groups and have them and host them to come down and urge people, because
Well, that's true, because you guys will be the ones doing the property management, right? So we don't need it, but that's something to look into in terms of
Yeah,
the
I
gold
think it's
standard for
something
the
to look
property
into.
manager, especially for those that may have vouchers that don't necessarily qualify for these units because they, maybe they're looking for something more, but I think it's a family unit, and to be able to do that.
Through the chair, this is a program that actually does a whole pre-screening, correct? They also do pre-screening they can also do pre-screening for landlords, and so
Yeah.
they don't have to work, the landlord themselves don't have to worry about
No,
doing
they
any of
don't.
it.
They have a
So
lot of the different
Yeah.
incentives that they've developed throughout
Mhm.
because of the difficulty of having the
connecting the both.
connecting both to them, so, yeah.
it would be
So
good
that's-
to do that.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, no, Dana, I think for me, I just want to say thank you. I mean, my concern again was how do we ensure that there's mechanisms and language in place to be able to determine that these units are going to remain affordable? And so just to clarify, I know the affordability timeframe here is 55, is that correct?
No,
Okay, so that's, okay.
this wouldn't, because this is not a tax credit deal.
I don't know if we actually determined what it would be.
I think
So
it's
section 401 on
30 years or
page
something.
409 is
Like
incorrect.
maybe the length of our, remember
Yeah.
this is a template.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
it's
just a
leftover from
template.
some tax
Oh,
credit.
Yeah, I
okay.
saw the
So-
55.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
didn't
and
write
in
this.
fact,
Yeah,
like I said before, our agreement is actually with Mike Nino. And so we'll have to figure out how to reflect this partnership. To lock the relationship between the city and Chispa on their portion. And with Mike, that he delivers the property as promised to Chispa. So, our city attorney is, looking at, the best way of doing that.
Okay, so this is just a model template. We're gonna bring back the draft proposal to the subcommittee or?
I would like
the
to-
council?
I think if we could go to council and you could provide us clear direction, so that, Mike can, look into what we need to do legally in order to do it, that would be great. I mean, it sounds to me like you're okay with the concepts. We've talked through the prioritization and tweak that. And you're just looking for more, clarity on the two families that have those properties and what the plan is in terms of offering them up something alternative.
Yeah, and Dana, what is the minimum affordability that Chispa can do then? For this project, is it still being discussed? Because if we're gonna go to proposal to the council, I think it's important for us to understand in terms of we're going to allow for this to happen in substitute of the developer to develop these affordable units, but partnering with Chispa, then what is the length of time that Chispa would allow these units to be made affordable?
we have to think about, I was thinking between 20 and 30 years.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
I mean, if you had, if Mike were just to build homes, right? Then are you guys gonna spend the next 50 years watching these people sell their homes from one household to another to make sure they don't make any money?
No, what's the term for the houses?
The resale restrictions.
Yeah.
That's
Is-
what and there's a notice
Is it
The
30 years, 20 years?
for which ones?
For the homes.
The
If you built homes instead of us doing 12 apartments.
45 years.
45
So
years.
Oh,
you guys are gonna provide staff to watch that transaction for
Part of the
45?
monitoring process,
Yeah.
Dana. We used to have to do that at the city. I know, but
It's
that
kind of
takes-
like being a renter while you're being a homeowner.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll have a loan with the bank.
Yeah.
I'd like to, be able to refinance that loan.
Yeah.
So all of that, it comes into the.
Through the
time.
church, what happens is with the notice request, the
Uh-huh.
request for notice. So basically what happens is when they, let's say they want to refinance or sell the
Yeah.
home,
Uh-huh.
we do get notified.
Mhm.
That's how we know if, for example, we're having a new housing person come in and we're gonna work with that person to create this monitoring system, right? So if we're gonna do it on ourselves, then let's say that system's not in place, what's gonna trigger is that notice. And
Yeah.
that's where we come involved and since I've gotten here, I've gotten a couple where they wanna refinance. I have to pull the agreement, see what they can and can't do. And they have to abide by it, so.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm familiar with that. I used to have to do that with the city of
Yeah.
Salinas when I was, working in housing. So that's why I know I've seen a lot of the affordable housing agreements that have compliance.
Yeah.
And my question is, who's doing the compliance? Because the city hasn't been doing that for the last couple of years, because we really haven't had a person to do that. So I know the compliance portion wasn't really active. But my question is, as we're moving forward with this and the push for me, at least several years ago, to really make sure we had a housing
Mhm.
coordinator or housing manager was, housing one is obviously very important and being able to look at how do we develop the housing that's needed, but also there's more of the compliance portion, right, of what we have, and we saw that even with Chispa, with the San Vicente, Rancho San Vicente, right, where there was a lot of the single family homes that were built with the sweat equity, and then
Mhm.
they had affordability terms, and some of them went into foreclosure. We didn't know, the city didn't have some of that information until, later. So the compliance piece is important. So I'm glad that we're getting someone on the team, but to your point, Dana, I mean, cities do need to be taking on that responsibility. I know it's a big responsibility, but I think housing is a need, and it's really important to be able to put in those mechanisms. So I'm fine with the 20 to 30-year affordability timeframe. I mean, that's, given that we don't have any subsidies, I think that's fair.
And then, of course, Chispa's goal is not to go build, to suddenly turn it into a market rate project. Our goal is to pay our loan down over 20 years and have it permanently affordable.
Yeah.
So that's
That was
part of the
good.
mission of Chispa.
Yeah.
Through the chair, I just wanted to say, I know when we came earlier into the meeting, we were talking about John Saavedra, who was the executive director at the Soledad Local Development Corporation, who built affordable housing, and some of the affordable housing he built besides multifamily was also single family units, which you may recall here in Soledad. I think there, if I remember, the restrictions that they had were something like 5 years. And in 5 years, a lot of them started selling their houses. So I think, even though the restrictions seem like a long time, which they are, I think when we see the housing crisis that our state is in, and, all these unhoused people, in the whole state, our county, our city, I think it's, I see the value of having those long-term restrictions, because otherwise, in a few years, where are our kids gonna be? They're probably gonna be in the same boat. So I think it's important to build affordable housing for our community and to be able to sustain it, throughout the years.
So Megan, I think you have direction. I think if we're in agreement to be able to move it forward with some of those to come back to city council, with some of those modifications and revisions, in terms of the priority changes that were made for the different levels of prioritization, and then with some of that included language.
And some of the marketing.
And the marketing portion to be a separate MOU that is gonna be separate from this partnership development agreement, but it's gonna be more with Chispa and the city to really be able to look at the marketing piece, and then just any other elements that we need to include as part of that MOU.
So, through the chair, just to the last piece, I just want to make sure we're in agreement with, is that this is going to be 100% AMI building. It'll be affordable for 100% AMI, but understanding that we're going to fill it with as many people who are gonna have those vouchers that are gonna be lower income to make up the difference. And that the affordability term will be no less than 20 years and hopefully 30 years. If
Yeah,
you're,
less than 20.
if you're allows, and then I think the marketing piece, as you mentioned, and the two.
Sorry, I was just gonna, sorry that I interrupted you. On the vouchers, we were also gonna add the housing choice voucher, so not just the housing authority. or
Yeah.
Section 8 ones,
Mhm.
yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that sounds good. And given the fact, I think it's important for our residents, and I think that marketing piece is gonna be important for us as well, to be able to ensure that we let our residents know this is being done. It's 100% affordable AMI, but it doesn't have any, and it doesn't have any of the traditional financing mechanisms, right? That typically affordable housing or affordable developments have. And so I think it's really unique, and I think if we can make this happen, Dana, I think there's potential that there's more, hopefully more in the future to come, especially to address the housing crisis that we have. So I really appreciate and commend Chispa and Mike for being innovative in terms of how do we meet some of those affordable, inclusionary kind of, criteria that we have.
Through the chair, I almost forgot, but just wanted to double check, with you, Megan, should we also include under the change on the occupancy requirements for section 4.06?
We might not need to, but if it is in the MOU, it might not be quite
Yeah.
structured this way, but if we do structure it more like this, then I'll let Mike know that we should just make sure that there's an understanding about that, or we could craft it in the MOU in terms of I think as Dana stated is that they would be marketing to those single households, so people kind of know ahead of time that if their occupancy changes, they'll have to.
It's important to keep it restrained to those people, because otherwise we'd have a parking problem.
Yes.
And that could affect
Yeah.
our building and it could affect the subdivision, and you just don't want that, so.
Any of those part of the tenant policies anyways, when they
Yeah.
move in, I mean, that's part of the lease agreement.
And
yeah.
I think you had a really, Councilmember Corley have a really good point that we really need to do a good job of marketing the occupancy, so people know ahead of time, hey, if your family dynamics change, and maybe there's some way that Chispa can also work with those individuals on their other projects. But we'll look at that once the agreement is finalized. I think this would likely come back in January.
Dana, do you guys, is there a timeline that we need to be aware of as we're moving forward with the project? And it'll come back to council in January, but is there anything else?
Sounds good. I'm just thinking that, I mean, I can't speak for Mike, but I assume he would like to get going and know what he's doing, you know, where he's putting things in there and how it'll take us a little time to work out an agreement, so we can just sort of feel like we're all going to go and the council then can understand it and decide if they want to do it, then that'd be good for all of us, because if it's not gonna work, I would rather know sooner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we could target January 17th if we can work on those documents and
Yeah.
get it done, and if not, we could go to the first meeting in February.
Okay.
That'll be good. Yeah, thank you so much. So again, just for the residents, this is a unique project and it's, working with a developer to be able to find an affordable housing developer that we can work with to be able to meet the needs under the inclusionary. That is not only going to give us the inclusionary units, but it's gonna provide more units than under the inclusionary provision, right? Which is something that's really important because that's only a minimum. So now we're gonna do more than what would have been done under the inclusionary regulation. So I think this is unique. It's something that is different, but I really commend both Mike, Nino, and Chispa and our team as well for trying to make sure that this was all put together and that any of the concerns that, we had as a subcommittee. I know for me is, again, as I said, just ensuring that these units are gonna remain affordable for the long term. And that there's a mechanism that we can put in place to make sure that these units do have the monitoring compliance and long term, and that they remain so for the people that really need it the most in our community, those with the lower income thresholds that have been really hard for the city to meet those numbers under our RENA compliance. So thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Dana.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, Mike.
everybody.
Thank you as well.
Okay, so at this time, then we will move on to our next item, which is community business number 2, which is Santa Clara Parcel E revised proposal for amendment to affordable housing project. And I will give this over to Megan.
Yeah, and I can let Tensia or even if Ariane has anything to add. But this has been an ongoing project that was approved initially, I think in 2003, has gone through subsequent changes throughout the years. And on August 29th, there was a partnership presented between Aga Development and Eden Housing, which I think has gone even exciting news that I think Eden is looking at actually putting some funding into the project. This would be a tax credit deal, so it would have that range of the lower incomes, and it would be restricted for 55 years. There are also moderate units that would be developed as part of the ownership housing, as well as the proposed affordable housing project. The exciting thing is we're actually going to do more than what would have been required by increasing the units by 12, which right now, what we can find in the affordable housing agreement was 28 units at the low income levels, and now we're looking at 40. There will be a modification needed in the PUD. We're still in discussion with Mike, our attorney, about how the best way of handling it is, whether it's amending the PUD to remove the rental project and then using density bonus, because they could get to that, what they need to do through the density bonus process. Or whether or not we just modify it through the PUD, but in any event, we know that we'll have to do some tweaking to that, but in order for them to kind of move forward and to spend more money to do the work that will need to be done to tweak the project to get more units, I think they're looking for certainty on this affordable housing proposal. And this one, because we're really trying to get as quickly to tax credit application, we really are hoping to either take this to December 6th or the meeting on December 13th, which I think the council's been informed that we will absolutely need a meeting on the 13th to facilitate another development project. So with that said, I don't know, Tensi, if you have anything to add, or Ariana.
Yeah, again, this is another unique one, but I think it's a great partnership between the Aga Development and Eden Housing. Plus it, more than anything, I think it increased almost double what was anticipating, was just what we want to do. Provide as much housing as possible to those income levels. So there is a couple of things to consider, as Megan mentioned, just, reiterating that the PUD may have to change. There is a request for density bonus, but there's reasons behind it to confirm that, it is something that is probably doable. And then funding, I think more importantly, we have funding coming in, so I don't have much to add to that. Ariana, do you have anything?
This one would be, we have an existing affordable housing
Mhm.
agreement, so we would actually amend it. And then again, there's a mechanism that we have to figure out a little bit about, whether it's an MOU or some other agreement between the city and Eden Housing.
Right, do you want me to describe that?
Well, our city attorney is
Oh,
still
he said-
evaluating
okay.
it, but I think Eden Housing also did express a willingness to have some type of reverter clause should they not be able to successfully get a tax credit deal done within maybe it's 5 years.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Megan. I know that was my concern the last time around, is how do we make sure if it doesn't get done, then what do we do? And, given that the project will move forward and the developer will develop his units, but yet we'll still have those affordable housing units that are not gonna be developed. And for me, I know, I've been really vocal about some of our history in the city of Soledad and making sure that that doesn't happen again, that those units that are supposed to be developed are developed, especially the affordable ones, because those are the ones that we haven't done in many, many years, and those are the ones that are really needed in our community. So making sure that there was a mechanism for that. So the reverter clause would just make sure that in 5 years, if those don't get done, they come back to the city, and then we would figure out how we move forward in developing those units.
And through the chair, I don't think that's gonna happen, given Eden's track record, but also they're willing to put some money into the.
Yeah, the
Project.
exciting bit is that we were awarded a significant amount of money from the Capital Impact Fund, which is a nationwide kind of contest, if you will. And one of our initiatives was to increase affordable housing in rural areas. And so I asked the board of directors, last week for a set aside, and it was approved, for this project. So we were approved for 990,000. I also asked the board of directors for authority to enter into a purchase and sale agreement with AGA, and then some sort of option or other mechanism, protection agreement with the city, whatever that's gonna look like, similar to what we've done in the past. Where there is a reverter, I was approved to do that as well. So I'll have to bring back to them the final terms before we execute that document. But our board of directors and our executive director is super excited about the opportunity to provide housing, especially with such in close proximity to our Campora property. It really will help Campora a great deal to have another property in the area. So we're very excited about that and our future expansion into the area as well. We don't intend to stop at 40. If you'll have us.
No, yeah, absolutely. The need is there. It's just, congratulations on being provided with a 10 million of award, and congratulations on really pushing your board also to provide you with the set aside for this project.
It was an easy sell. It was. I mean, I told them everything that you all had done to support the project, to support AGA development, and they're excited about the partnership, and we already are in the community. So it was very easy to pitch the project.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. So now I'm gonna leave it up to her. So I just for reference in terms of our community members, I know obviously, housing can be very complex, but this one is a little bit different because as Dencia said, this is an existing affordable housing agreement. And we already have provisions under our inclusionary for our developers to be able to meet those 20%, which is the minimums that the city of Soledad has in terms of affordability under our inclusionary. But I know for the AGA, this property had been sitting there. We've had this discussion, right, for some time now, and I know it's been there. And we want to make sure that as a council, we are really trying to be creative, and this is a little bit different because, again, on this one, the developer now is, even though the developer is still responsible for this, is now partnering with an entity like Eden Housing that has a great reputation to be able to bring this partnership to provide the housing, affordable housing that's needed for our residents. So it is, again, a unique partnership, but I think at this point, given the housing crisis and given the need that we know exists in our community, and given the fact that some of our projects haven't moved forward in a long time because there's been, a need, or there's been challenges, right, with developing the affordable piece that is required. It's important for us as policymakers to look at new policy that's going to allow us to be able to move forward and provide the housing that's needed at the market rate, but also the affordable units that are needed for our residents. So given that, for me at least, given that this project is going to double the number of units that it would have under its inclusionary to almost, at 40% from 28 to 40%, I think this is a good project. And given the track record that Eden Housing has as well, and given the fact that they have a funding mechanism, I think it's even better. So I think for me, it's, I know there's going to be amendments to the affordable housing agreement, and those will be back, they'll come back to us. But I think for me, this is a project I really definitely am excited to be able to support.
I just wanted to echo the mayor's words. I'm also, very excited to have this project and to have Eden Valley here. And I think I could probably copy word for word of what she said, but I'm gonna take a little different approach just to bring something up that I think this is also a great project, for Eden, like you said, because then you guys would have another property close to Campora. And I think part of the benefit for our community and for those living in that community that you're gonna build, hopefully is gonna be that, if you guys keep building here, I'm hoping eventually you'll have a supervisor that's local. So now those people that live here and reside in those units will have a local person overseeing, you know, their day-to-day residential living. So I think that that's the huge plus, that hopefully will start employing more local people that will be working for a great company like Eden. So, you know, it's a win-win.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
And what we would do is, with this committee's, support would just move this forward. And like I mentioned before, Mike, the city attorney is going to, modify the existing, kind of figure out what the best mechanism is, working with Eden, understanding what, the goal is, which is to have some assurances with that reverter clause. And then we would essentially modify, the affordable housing agreement to reflect that the Eden project would be responsible for that. The, low and very low, but the moderate units would still remain within the, proposal.
And then what would the mechanism be for zoning compliance?
So we would probably have to come back, because that has to go to the planning commission, then the council. And probably will, our city attorney is looking at it. I have one thought, which was to amend the PUD to take the project out of the PUD, the rental housing, and then do a density bonus on it, but I'm not sure. I'm not the city attorney, so he may or may not agree with that as the approach. So it might be easier just to modify the PUD and reflect the density bonus provisions.
Megan, do we have on the, well, just staying with the units though, so on the amendment would include, so we'll still have the 24 moderate income household, that's still gonna be part of this. We're taking out what was the 24 units or the 28 units.
Yeah.
And so, and then putting it into a separate agreement
Yeah.
for the 40 units. Do we have under the 40 units, the affordability, income levels for those?
We
Would
do.
those be
We
under?
do. Was that part of the report?
I think
Or I know it's part of the pro forma.
The one that's attached, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it should be on the very first page showing the summary. But I can give those to you.
30, the project will have 100% affordable with units offered to families, 30 to 50.
30 to 50%. There'll be 30%, 40, 50. Let me double check that schedule because I
And
was
they, I
So
think
we
you
have
would,
like a
around with that.
breakdown, like a unit breakdown.
Yeah, you have them right there. Is it on this page?
Yep, that's it.
Yeah,
I
it's on this one.
Mhm.
have to do a little bit of backward engineering on that. And there's still maybe some tweaks on one or two units to make sure I hit the correct percentage of large
Because they have to
family.
meet the criteria.
Correct.
Okay, got
so
it.
typically, I think having done these tax credit projects, what we've typically done, because it depends a lot on the pro forma, but stipulated it'll be between 30 to 60% AMI.
Yeah, I do have 4, 5, 6, 7, 60% units in there. So the range goes from 30, 40, 50, and 60. Talk about threading the needle on this one.
You're gonna make it work, right?
I was gonna make it work.
That's great to see all these different AMIs targeted, that'll help different
Yeah, well,
families.
that was the goal, and we know that
Mhm.
the need in the community is across all ranges.
Yeah.
Really, and balancing that with feasibility and making sure that the project could be self-sustaining as well over time.
Yeah.
And it's good to see the larger, the 3-bedroom units. I know those with the family units
Yeah.
are really important, so it's good to see those within each of those.
And I appreciate the previous presentation. I took notes on a couple of organizations I'd love to reach out to.
Oh, yes, definitely. Okay. Okay, good. I did have a question with regards to the parking, and I have noticed, and I'm sure you can agree with me, that parking seems to be one of the biggest issues when it comes to multifamily homes. So it's 52, was it 53 parking spaces and we have 40 units. So do you know how those are gonna be? Like, is there gonna be visitor parking and it's gonna be one unit, one parking space for each unit size? I'm assuming the 3-bedroom will have 2 parking spots?
You don't really allocate it like just
Mhm.
based on that.
Yeah.
You allocate it and based on need, actually, and
Oh,
assign
okay.
parking.
Yeah.
Because some households might not have any.
Yeah,
Some may have more, visitor park, I mean, we're definitely parking it. We can never provide enough parking.
Yes.
If I provide 200 spaces, we'll need 300. That's for sure, but 300 doesn't meet our arena numbers, 300 parking spaces doesn't, so making sure that there's a good balance, knowing this is a car-centric location.
Mhm.
Was really important to us. We have not looked at restriping to put in any compact spaces, so that's at the back of our minds as well.
Yeah.
To try and squeeze in as many spaces as we can. We want to leave the footprint of the buildings in place
Mhm.
so that we don't jeopardize the current zoning
Yeah.
on it, but then see if there is some if there's raising up the building one level on one of the buildings helps tremendously in getting the common areas in that. So we may have some more opportunity to add spaces
Okay.
without adding or hurting our FAR numbers.
Okay, yeah, that was
Yeah.
a concern of mine because we have this called Greenleaf Estates that we have, and it's like a high density project, and the parking has got so bad to one point where it was really hazard, like for emergency vehicles to come in and out, or even for people to get in and out, children out there playing, so.
Yeah.
When I saw the increase of the units, I was very happy, but then I started thinking about the parking.
Comes at a price.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I can appreciate that, but yeah,
Mhm.
so we'll definitely look at ways to try and use the space, the land space
Mhm.
efficiently.
Yeah.
So just Megan, just a quick question in terms of, the attachment two with the request for concessions. And obviously we have the different concessions and there's, state density bonus. But there will be additional concessions that may be needed to make sure the project pencils out.
All of the concessions that they're asking for actually would be allowed under state density laws, what I understand.
That's correct.
Height and all of those things are the concessions under the density bonus law are fairly generous, and I don't, compared to some others, they're actually not asking for too many concessions.
So the high density would be the stories of the building, so I know that.
One of them,
The
Yeah,
height, so it would be a
yeah,
3-story?
3-story on one of the buildings,
Okay.
yeah.
And we're able to do that. Well, by the time the construction starts, that'll be part of what we can do, right? I know typically we haven't done 3 stories because we haven't met some of the provisions
Yeah.
without the
we're.
ladder truck, but with that.
Yeah, so one thing that I think Ariana was gonna do is get a meeting with both building and fire, just to make sure that that's wasn't gonna be an issue.
Okay.
But yeah, the ladder truck that would come ahead of the
Construction.
the building construction, because I think it's going to come next year.
So you do have a ladder truck on the way? like
We do,
Yeah.
we
Okay.
do.
Yeah.
So we've already paid for it
Yep,
and we're
It's
just
being
waiting for
built.
it. It's being built, so.
Gotcha.
I was hoping it would be here this year, but they said not till next year. But it's coming, so which is a good thing. And then we've already amended our ordinance. I thought we already through the amendments that we did for the codes that we had already included some of the height
the
densities
rezoning.
for the zoning. I thought we did some of that already in the
Did-
last.
For the increasing density in the R3, and I believe it also included to increase the height on some of the buildings.
I thought it did,
Yeah,
yeah, because I
that's
remember I had asked about it, so, okay, so then we'll be, hopefully, can we just make sure?
Double check.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
So that.
And
we-
that's something, that we actually put in our housing element that we are specifically going to be exploring in the R3 in the downtown.
Yeah, and it's also part of the rate too.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I can't think of any other concessions that we're gonna need to pencil this out because I've backed into as few as possible. And kind of said, okay, well, this is a good number, like 43 units, not good. Like adding a stack, it just totally messed everything up, so. It's taken a little bit of time to go back and forth and
So the
reverse
40 units is
engineer.
good.
Yeah, it's a sweet spot.
Okay.
It's, and still, I'm trying to keep it under a certain dollar amount for tax credits so that we kind of sneak in under the radar. Either we're the only project or we get leftovers. There's a wonky little formula that's done on the second round that will send you to a waiting list. And so I'm kind of playing those numbers a little bit too and being very strategic about structuring the whole project so that it can fit into another little needle window as well.
So Megan, just on that note with the concurrent, because I know when we updated some of our policies as well, Ariana, I think the last one we talked about was the concurrent development. This is gonna be a little bit different because of timing in regards to the funding source, right? So we'll
Yeah.
modify, this will be modified just for that, but any other developments moving forward are gonna be held to comply with the concurrent policy provisions that we just approved as council.
Yeah, exactly. This one's a little different because they actually already have a affordable housing plan, so they're pretty much locked in, but we're taking it back to council to modify, but any new projects that don't have an affordable housing plan will be
Will be
subject
subject to that.
to the concurrency standards. And then if there was a future project, they could do you would have the ability to modify the timing in a partnership like this. This could be a future example, even though it was locked in
Oh,
before.
got it, because it already had an affordable housing
Yeah.
agreement, but if we move forward, it could be a pilot, and then we can add the concurrency.
Yeah, yeah, you could have a situation where you have the ownership that. I mean, it's kind of a good example. You have the ownership that has to do the concurrency with the, the development, but then they could. For the very low and low income, where it's hard to make that pencil, you could have a partnership like that, and then you can ensure that you have these type of projects that are, especially in the future Miramonte, that you can see a future where you have this kind of mix of income housing that is integrated, not shoved to one side.
Yeah, and addresses us, I know with this project, I think, it's been a while, but in terms of this, I know for me, the environmental justice piece was really important too, to make sure that we're not segregating and putting all of our affordable housing in one area and not integrating that, so
Yeah.
that's good, that that'll happen, so. Okay, well, I don't have, Councilwoman, if you have any more questions on this item, I think. Go ahead.
Thank you. I actually do have some questions. The first one was just regarding the restrictions. Is they gonna be 45 years or 55 years? I think I saw both on the report.
55 years would be for the tax credit, because that's a requirement of their funding source. 45 years would be for the homes, which is a standard that we have.
And then.
Or I mean, unless it's different, I didn't look at it, to be honest
It's
with you.
different for these homes.
Oh, okay, what is it in the
It's
affordable?
like
housing?
0.
Oh,
It's like, it's not deed restricted. Are you talking about the single
For
family
the
houses?
moderate.
for the moderate.
Yeah, so they're to be sold initially at moderate prices, but then they're not deed restricted.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so I take that back.
Yeah.
Again, there was a different, typically what it is for these homes is 45 years. But
And then the next question that I have, and it might have been, it might have been in the report, I might have missed it. But was there any square footage per unit size? Like per bedroom size, and it might have been there, and I might have just missed it, but.
The original plans,
We do have
We're staying close to the,
construction drawings.
yeah, there's gonna be
So-
some revision.
Okay.
But it looks like one bedroom units were, this is net, paint to paint, not wall, not center wall to
Yeah.
center wall. So net rentable for one bedrooms is 450, two bedrooms 700, three bedrooms 900.
Okay, thank you. And then, my last thing, it's not really a question, I think I'm just kind of trying to, put a seed in there. If there's any common areas, I know I did see on your budget, that you put, it said daycare and it said 0. But if there's ever an opportunity, and if this is something that Eden does, I would honestly just love to see a daycare.
Not on this site,
Not on this site. too
but I
small.
would love to put it on
Yes.
another site where I had at least another acre.
Yes, a future project.
Yes.
There we go.
Large family, I'm trying to do daycares on all of our large families.
Yes, we need it.
Where we can get it in there. You need about minimum 2,000 interior square foot,
Mhm.
and you need like 5,000 exterior dedicated.
Yes.
And it can't be a shared outdoor space,
Mhm.
to get the daycare licensing,
Yeah.
so. That's a minimum to get one of our operators in,
Yeah,
But
good
yeah.
to know.
yeah,
Yeah.
not huge, but every little bit helps.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, whether it's for working families.
Noted on my next.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
parents that want to go to school.
Now, would that be on site necessarily, or?
Yeah, I've seen some properties where they have it on site and it's so convenient for the families.
The housing authority property, the one that the Benito Apartments,
Mhm.
that they have a there was a community center and they have childcare.
Yeah,
Provided.
I know, I'm building one in my downtown Santa Cruz project, Daly City project, and I think, didn't we put it in the Salinas project as well?
I bet it is in there.
I think it's in there as well.
There, I mean, there's space to it
Yeah.
in that, because that's like a 5 acre, little less than 5
Yeah.
acre site.
But thank you, I will keep trying.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And one last questions. I did see something on here where it says that, Soledad Unified School District employees have preference on this
Not on this one.
property, so I don't, yeah, I was wondering if that
Maybe it was a holdover on.
On your.
and then
Oh,
It might be on the
breaking-
moderate houses. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that, yeah.
Oh, okay, on the
Yeah,
houses.
Solid workforce in general, I think, has.
Okay,
preferential.
yeah.
And that was part of what was the discussion previously. I'm trying to remember when the Ad-Hoc subcommittee had met. Was it that part that we wanted to make sure that there was preference?
You mean
or-
back in like 2020? or something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so,
Okay.
when this was being discussed back then.
Okay, that's all I have, thank you.
Would it be appropriate to talk about the daycare thing for a second? Can I just have questions about that. Cause with Miramonte coming, if that's something that would be integrated into like the affordable housing there. Does that, would we have to figure out how to like kind of create room for that, or does that go toward affordable numbers, or how does that work? I'm just kind of curious. 'Cause it's not being planned for at the moment, so.
It doesn't go towards affordable numbers, but if you do some partnership opportunities, a lot of affordable housing providers like to provide it because
Uh-huh.
it's a need, and also it's you could at least earn some income
Sure,
from an operator.
yeah.
And it's a need in Soledad.
And one thing in terms of density too, say, we've already set that there's gonna be a certain number of units within our acreage. And we have to get creative, figure out how to put the daycares in there, or does you get some sort of, is that when you get into some density bonus?
Well, the
matters.
density bonus will help you with the units.
Okay.
So that might be a way, because I'm assuming under state law, you can layer density bonus on whatever entitlement you have, so I don't think that would be any different
Okay.
in Miramonte,
Gotcha.
so.
Megan, so there was a property, and I remember when I was with the city of Salinas, and it was early on, we weren't there yet, but there was a property, and it was a housing authority, I think it was a housing authority property that provided, it was one of its one of, first of its kind, I want to say, where they had units, apartment units, but they also, worked at that time with, I'm trying to remember the name of the affordable housing agency in Salinas. To be able to have the apartment units also be daycare centers. So,
Oh, yeah, that's another thing too, that under a certain size, you can have family, you can provide family daycare. So some of the houses could actually could provide daycare. I think it's 6, I'd have to look. I think it's 6
Yeah.
children or less, or.
and they did it also in partnership with MCOA, which was a really, and I don't know if it's still existing or not, but I know at that time they worked to be able to certify the individuals, so that way they can get their certification to be able to help them. So now not only are you providing housing, but you're also providing jobs, right? And you're also providing the need for childcare.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really awesome concept. I don't know if it's, if there was any challenges with that, but to be able to look at different ways
Mhm.
as we move forward.
Yeah,
Very
so
cool.
I've never, I just haven't thought about this, cause having the daycare on site, that has this huge implications in terms of, time on the road, like parents don't have to drive across town, right? So it's right there, and obviously that saves time and, air pollution, and then the kids are, like, probably a more comfortable, environment. So that's why I'm trying to figure out, if we can make that work, make sure that our, what we're doing in the future can accommodate that, and that doesn't become like a,
Yeah.
Yeah.
congestion issue.
Sorry, there are two nonprofits. One of them, I was Googling it because I was trying to remember the name, but it's called the Mexican American Opportunity
Yeah, that's
Foundation, and I believe they're the ones that are in the Benito one, and so they might have grants or be able to assist. So Mexican American Opportunity Foundation. And then I know even El Pájaro CDC was offering in the Monterey County and here in Soledad, they offered some classes to help, right, to help people become certified, is it? Yeah, so there are a lot of people out there, I think, and a lot of nonprofits that you can partner with.
Well, so what's the second one?
El Pájaro CDC. Pájaro, PAJARO CDC, and they actually come to Soledad.
Yeah, so we have an MOU with them. They're out of
Yeah.
Watsonville, and we've had the MOU probably for what, like 4 or 5 years now, Cynthia?
The MOU, 3 years.
3 years with them. Yeah, so they come and they do a lot of the business, development and support our businesses, but they have a whole, because they do a lot of the small micro businesses, so they're really supporting because of the need, right? That there was a big need in this area also with childcare to provide, getting people certified to have.
Especially since COVID, a lot of childcares were
Yeah,
obliterated
especially
because of
during
the whole pandemic, and, we have. Plus, it came up where people were just basically leaving their children with family members and sometimes with even strangers, so they felt the need, so they actually got funding this year. And they actually did do a training in Soledad during the summer, and each class was at least 30 providers.
Oh, wow.
And this is all in South County. So there is, there is a great need, and they do help you to do tenant improvements. You can get particular funding for that or new and get licensed. So.
Yeah, which is really important. So there is, so thank you for, bringing that conversation. I know the city also several years ago during the pandemic in 2020, as a matter of fact, our residents passed Measure S, which, was during the pandemic, it was pretty extraordinary because people were really hurting financially, but there was a measure that the council put on the ballot and was approved, and part of the language also included childcare, because we knew that was a big, a big need. And as we know, Monterey County, obviously with the childcare slots that are available are really insufficient, especially to meet the need that we have. But we also found out not only was it for families that are earning lower income, but just middle-class families, right, that need the childcare and don't have the availability of having relatives or, have that care, so it's very expensive, and there was that need also, so I think the whole concept of moving that forward as part of Measure S was to be able to allow the city also to look at mechanisms to be able to support that need for development of childcare within our community. So-
Thank you. And I cringe when I see on Facebook, people asking who will babysit, anyone who will babysit my child, and I'm like.
Mhm.
Okay, so then just to go back on this one, then I think we have direction. Megan, you have direction in terms of the modification of the affordable housing agreement. It'll come back to us, to the council in December 13th.
December's, yeah, probably more likely 13th, the 6th or the 13th.
Okay,
But I think, given, that Mike has been working on another priority, it might be the 13th.
okay. And this would amend then the existing affordable housing agreement. We'd retain the 32 units of, the 32 units for, single family homes at moderate, correct?
Yeah,
Or
24, I think it's 24.
Yeah,
Let me look at the agreement.
But it was 24 moderate.
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's a 20.
24 moderate, and then there'll be 40, low income.
It's on page 3.
Oh, sorry, I'm
Page
looking at
three.
the wrong page.
Yeah,
Page 3 of the agreement.
Okay, so it'll retain that just so that way our residents are aware, just kind of all the
Mhm,
conversation,
mhm.
that it will retain the 24 units at moderate income for moderate income households. And those don't have any restrictions, and that was per the agreement that was approved in 2020.
Mhm.
Right? But then we would, have a separate agreement with Eden Housing for the construction of the 40 rental units that have the 30, 50, 60% AMI breakdown, depending on how that, or 80, right? I think it was 80.
No,
also.
no 80,
No,
no
80, 30,
But I would
60?
ask that, we be, a little bit like not exact between those ranges because there may be one or two units that go
Yes. Yeah,
up into a category
Okay.
or below a category.
but it'll be those 40 units that will serve between 30 to 60% AMI.
Correct.
Got it. Okay,
And then those will be locked in at construction closing. We can lock those in permanently for 55 years at that time, once the tax credits are awarded.
okay. And then in terms of timeline for tax credit award, I know they only do them like every so like
Mhm.
twice, I think it's twice a year, right? So,
June, right?
yeah, so when will we know in terms of your award for if you receive the funding?
I don't think we can have this designed enough to where it's ready to go in March, so I'm shooting for July tax credit application in 2024, and the awards are usually made in August.
Okay,
That's what I'm shooting for, and I know it's aggressive, but I think we can meet it.
got it. That's awesome. Okay, great. Well, thank you for that. That at least gives us a timeline. It gives our residents also a timeline in terms of why this project is important and how we need to move forward to make sure that we meet with those deadlines that are coming before us in 2024.
Right.
So, thank you.
And if something different comes out if we have to redo a zoning app, then we have to look at the timelines on
Yeah.
that. That could derail timeline, but
Okay,
we'll deal with that when it comes.
I think it'll be fast,
I think so too.
okay.
so I don't think that one, you could probably run the process concurrently.
I'm curious about the administrative action to increase it to 36 units. Is that a complication in any way, or is that not even official? And
40.
I
Well, no,
have,
'cause it's what, like, we increased it 36.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
can't,
but there's no record of it apparently.
yeah, through the
Okay.
chair, I could not find any, record of it, so through density bonus, you can go up to the 40, so it's,
So it's a non-factor.
yeah, it's
Okay.
not necessary.
Okay, so yeah, I think that's it. If there's no other questions, you have enough direction from us to bring it forth to the council. And I think that's it. I think the only other thing to just note is the reverter clause, that in case this project doesn't move forward within a 5-year time frame, then it comes back to the city, and then the city needs to be able to figure out how we provide those units.
I think we had something in the agreement of like, you know, showing good cause or good. I don't know, it's like, I'm spending money and applying my head off. That shows we're in there.
Yeah, the good faith effort, obviously, you know, but I think just for us, I think it was important that in case the project doesn't move forward in 5 years, our community knows we deferred this, and it was, we entered into this agreement, which is different because the developer can move forward, develop his housing, but yet we still have these units that are, you know, obviously we want them to move forward, but in the event they don't, you know, we're gonna be very, very stringent on the good faith effort and making sure that we, that these units get developed. Our preference is that they obviously get developed within the 5-year time frame, right? So we don't have to have that reverter clause, but in the case that they don't, then we do have a mechanism to be able to say they're gonna come back to the city, and then the city has to figure out what to do with them.
Okay.
Okay, well.
We're very comfortable entering that agreement.
Well, thank you, Cynthia, again, and thank you, Megan, thank you both as well for, again, you know, for our community, this is another unique project that we haven't done, but given the need that we have for affordable housing, I think it's really important for the council to explore out of the box, you know, solutions in order for us to meet our affordable housing criteria. And given that this unit goes from giving us 28 to 40 again, right? Or not, sorry, not that was the other one. Giving us 24 to 40 within that range that we need between the 30 to 60% AMI. These are the deeper units that the city again has not been able to fulfill within its RENA numbers in the past couple of years. So I think this is a really good project to move forward with.
Thank you.
Move forward to the council with a recommendation for approval. So thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, with that, then we will, if there is no order of business, committee reports. We have committee reports there.
No committee report.
Okay, so given that there is no committee reports, then I will adjourn this meeting